You'll appreciate it's
Hey? Oh, that's
my main Starbucks mug.
your main Starbucks mug. I need a North Carolina Starbucks mug.
You do. You absolutely do.
Welcome, everybody. We're going to be talking about secrets to writing a bestseller. I'm Haley Gray. I'm the founder of the Women's Entrepreneur Network, and I have been a best-selling author multiple times even with the same book.
Nice.
And I've got my friend Melissa Mansfield-Anderson here, and we're going to be talking about book writing because that is her jam.
That's my
I've done
jam.
it, but she does it for clients. So tell me, what does like having a best-selling book do for your clients?
That's a great question. And I want to preface it with how the world is right now. Anyone can publish anything. Anything can be published right down to, like, I'll show you, I even published my own workbook for my coaching course. So anyone can publish, right? But not everyone can hit the bestseller status. And that really is where the feels come in, right? When you've published something and you acknowledge yourself for the work, but then when you're acknowledged by your circle and your community and buyers, and you show up at a higher level, and when you're able to change everything on your social profiles and your LinkedIn and your resume to bestseller, international best-selling author, it gives you an air of authority that 97% of the people, actually higher than that, don't have. You know, the latest stats are that 3% of people actually finish the book that they want to write, and only 1% of those people hit bestseller. So you're truly in an elite group.
And I mean, that's kind of interesting because, I think that in the online space, there can be a certain amount of ennui around that and like fatigue around becoming a best-selling author because it seems like everybody and their cousin has already done it.
Uh-huh. Depends on your circle. It really does. So it feels like everyone and their cousin has, if you have people like that in your circle, which means that you're surrounded by successful people.
Right.
But I've got clients that don't know anybody that's even written a book.
Right.
So I have found that the people that I network with in Atlanta, for example, a lot of my friends and a lot of my acquaintances business-wise down there actually do have that status. Most of the people that I network with up here have never even considered the process of writing a book. So I think that once you get into the bigger cities and you get into more successful circles, you're going to find that you do have more of those people in your group, but it's still a small amount of people.
Yeah.
And it isn't easy. You know, if they're getting that done, it's because they've got somebody that's really helping them master that process and get it to do. Because my first book wasn't a bestseller. I didn't know then what I know now. I almost think that, and this is going to sound really crappy, but it is true. At this point, you publish a book and it's not a bestseller. It's really not that great as far as perspective, right? Because if you know a lot of people that have already published books and have hit bestseller, if you don't do it, you're really not.
You haven't done your research and you haven't done your part of it because, there is just a certain art form to hitting bestseller, but it's not that difficult if you know how to do it. But the trick is knowing how to do it.
How to do it. Yep. How to do it. And the other thing is to make sure that you have something that's worth 5 stars, because it's not just about being a bestseller, right? Because on bestseller, you get that tag for a day or 2, sometimes 3, depending on your category. But reviews are forever. And I have seen a lot of women in my group that have been best-selling authors that when I go to look up their book, they have no reviews, or they have 1 review and it's like their best friend. And that's right. And that's not really what you want, right? You know, you get the bestseller status and then you have to follow through. You have to make sure that you reach out to the people that got your book and get them to, can you write a review? Make sure that you're following through on the whole process, because that sets you up better for your next bestseller.
Yeah, and that is probably one of the biggest mistakes I see people make. They write a book They throw it out there. It's up on Amazon. Yay, me, I published a book. But there's no marketing plan. There's no reviews. There's no follow through on the process. So you never get to bestseller status. You never get the reviews. You never leverage the book. And I've seen people who are continually putting out new books and they don't do any of this other follow through, which is where the magic actually happens for the book. So they do the same thing over and over and over again, hoping to get a different result.
Right. And people aren't going to magically find your book.
No.
Just because you publish a book doesn't mean that it's going to be searchable once you're done, because there's the whole keyword piece. There's a lot of things on the back end that can keep you from landing where people are looking.
Yeah.
So it is up to you, especially as a small self-published author. It is up to you to make sure people know about your book. And it's a great way to get free PR, right? If you are an author and you have a local radio station, you can take your book and you can call the radio station unabashedly and say, I live locally. I just wrote a book on this, and I'm curious if you guys ever feature local authors. They're always looking for things to share and to bring in listenership. So newspapers, you can get so much PR just from having a written book, but you've got to go find it. You've got to go get it.
Yeah. And that's the missing piece, is the knowing how to go get it and going out and actually going and getting it, because a book that you've just published, honestly, isn't worth the paper it's printed on.
No, it's not. It's not until it is, it's like real estate, right?
Until you actually do something with it.
Yeah. It's the perceived value. There's no value in it if you don't do anything to make it seem important. If you don't share it with people that find it valuable, if you never get a review that says, this book was great, or it impacted me this way or that way. And there are some ways to make sure that you can write a bestseller quality book. And I actually teach that. It's the 5 steps to bestseller status. And I am happy to share a couple of them with you guys outside of my program, because the rest, of course, is safe for the program. But the first one is easy. It is your story. And I don't mean like how you got into business or your whole life story. It's the very vulnerable, raw, ugly piece of your story that left you impacted and made obvious change. I like to think of a book, because you don't have to have a big book to be a bestseller and to make impact. I actually have a program that's around 42-page books that are bestsellers. Think of your life like a porterhouse, right? And the porterhouse has the strip on it, but it also has the fillet. The fillet is your book. You take that very concentrated piece and you make it so you have back-to-back peaks and valleys of emotion throughout your piece of writing. And that's easy to do with story. I found that a lot of women that I've talked to didn't think that their story was good enough or that they'd been through enough, right? But every woman has been through something that another woman would go, oh my gosh, wow, you're amazing.
And how much is enough?
I know, right? One of my coaches, one of my trauma response coach, she actually says that, aim for being too much, because too much means you're being yourself. Don't be afraid to be too much. And when you're writing, of course, you want to stay within your comfort level of what you are okay with putting out publicly. But not only is it cathartic to work through the ugly parts of your story, it is extremely relatable. When you talk about things that other people won't talk about, you show up as a leader. And that's when you make impact. And that's when you get 5-star reviews. And that's when you can convert more business, right? So that's one tip. And then the second tip, this is actually a really, really big one that I don't see a lot of people doing. And it's to make it interactive. And by interactive, I mean within the book itself, it doesn't have to just be text, right? You don't have to just write the whole book. One of the biggest tips I give my clients and I help them with is to teach their readers how to implement what they're teaching through their story. So worksheets, photos, graphics, charts, anything that helps to drive home your story point for people that are visual. And I'm a very visual person. Like infographics are my thing. I love them. I just love them. You can give me any data on an infographic and I'm going to find it interesting. So when you put things like that into a book and you have questions that people have to answer, what you're doing is you're not only getting them more engaged with the book and making a bigger impact on them, but you're also keeping the book in their hand, right? How many times have you read a great book and you want to share it with a friend, or somebody's like, I read this great book, let me lend it to you? Well, people aren't going to lend out your book once they've written in it. So, but they'll still refer it, but now that other person has to buy the book. So that is the second thing to help you write a 5-star book. Keep it interactive, make it interactive.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, people want to be drawn in. They want to interact. They want to say hi. They don't want to be preached to.
No, and when they're buying books on things like what we're writing about, you know, story and how it affected us and how it made us successful and how we turned it around, they want to have a win. They're reading that book because they want to be impacted. They want change. They want to be inspired. They want hope, but they also want to see that you've been down where they are. They want to kind of go through your journey while they're still in the trenches. And by bringing them through it, by having them actually interact with the paper, that's about as close as you can get to having a conversation, because now you're not just telling your story in a book, you're telling your story to someone who is able to have a conversation with you without having a conversation with you, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Love it. So if somebody wanted to get more secrets, how would they go about doing that?
There's a couple things. I do offer calls on my website. You can go to my website, lipstickceo.com, and book a call, and I will help you craft a title for your book. We just have a conversation about what your topic would be about. But if they want all the juice that they would need to write a book and become a bestseller in 2022, message me on my Facebook page, Melissa Mansfield-Anderson. You won't miss me. I have a big, huge smile on my face. And message me the word secrets. And I will send you the information, because I am putting together right now a workshop for the first week of January where I am going to just dump all of the information in an easy to follow format, so that once we're done with that intensive, you can go and you can write your book.
I love it. That is
excited.
Awesome. I mean, and I think it's just amazing content that you're giving people. And this is an amazing service because it makes the whole process so much easier. And having gone through it a few times and having gone through it once with you, highly recommend it.
Thank you. And I never thought, if you asked me a year ago if I was going to be helping people with this, I had no idea. It's amazing how the world works. But my very first book I wrote, I bumped my head so much because I had never done it before. I didn't know what I was doing. But once you do it one time, it's like you get your first tattoo, right? You get your first tattoo and you're like, oh my gosh, now I want another one. And I think I've become a junkie, right? I wrote one book, so now I have to continue writing because it's such a great feeling. When I hold my book in my hand, that very first book, the emotion that's tied to that is second only to having my children, because I put so much of me into that book. And then when I earned the title of bestseller and international bestseller, it changes you. It changes you in your business. It doesn't just change your authority with other people. It changes your authority with yourself. You look at yourself different. You walk different. It's a really big deal. I don't know that there's been anything else that's impacted me as much as this whole process has, when it comes to my confidence in what I'm capable of, and feeling like, yes, I'm a badass. I'm amazing.
I love it. I love it so much. Cool. So y'all, message Melissa the word secret.
And I will get back to you with information and an offer to figure out your title for free. That really is one of the biggest. That's the number one marketing is your title. Because, you figure people are searching on Amazon. That's what they see. If they can't read what's on the cover, they can read the title. And that's your chance to hook them. So it's important that it's just right.
Absolutely. I love it. Love it so much. Cool. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, this was great. Always,
Awesome.
anytime, anything
Thank
for you.
Quick and easy. We're done.
Have a great Monday.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.